Then, of course, get the question a lot, and that's something that we're working with a lot, of course, as well, is the localization aspect of the employer value proposition. Should we have one EVP? Should we have several EVPs? What we think at Universum is that you should have one overarching EVP that you then localize and tailor for different target groups. But consistency is key, because talents of today, they study abroad, they travel, you have social media, you have the World Wide Web. So if you are a completely different company in different markets, that will backfire on you. So I'll just share with you a quick example. So here you can see the top 3 associations. Sorry, not associations. The top 3 preferences among US engineering students. Okay? So they want secure employment, they want innovation, and a creative and dynamic work environment. Okay, great. Then let's look at the UK. Here you can see professional training and development, challenging work, and a creative and dynamic work environment. You can see there's only one attribute that is the same in the top 3. Secure employment is obviously not as important for the UK talents as for the American ones. Then we look at Russia. What do you think are most important for them? Money. Yes, you know your neighbors. So here you can see high future earnings and competitive base salary are both visible here in the top 3. Okay? So what does this mean? If I'm now globally responsible for this employer branding strategy, it will probably give me a couple of more gray hairs than I already have now, because I have to, adapt and localize my strategy to these markets if I want to be successful. So this is just one example. I mean, we of course have thousands of these examples since we have data from 60 countries. But I also want to point out that it can vary like this if you look within a country. If you compare business, engineering, IT, or if you compare male, female, it does vary a lot. So the same thinking is, still applies for a single market as well. Then this, I know it's an extremely complicated slide, but yes, I made this drawing yesterday, so I think 1 or 2 or 3 people in the room have already seen this. But for the rest of you, I'll just make a very quick drawing instead of us. So don't look at that, look at this instead, okay? Can you see it? So this is basically, the approach when you localize the employer value proposition. You identify, these are the components of the employer value proposition, globally or regionally. Good, we know that. Then what you do is that you basically look at, let's say now we're looking at engineering students in Georgia, for example. Okay, when we're going to take this employer value proposition to this particular target group, then we have to look at what's attractive to them. Okay, these 4 things, that's part of the global employer value proposition. That's not attractive to them. So let's not talk about that, right? Because we want to maximize our efforts. So take that out, okay? These things, they're also credible for us. These 2 things, they're not credible. We could, of course, communicate those, but they would cost us more money because we have to change the perception more. So if we want to go for low-hanging fruit, then let's take those out as well. Then what's distinct? These 2, for this target group, our competitors are actually a lot better. So let's take these out as well. And that then ends up with you knowing that, okay, for engineering students in Georgia, these are the 4 things from the EVP that we should be focusing on. So that's how you go about localizing it. So a very data-led approach, but you will know with 99% certainty that you will choose the right things to talk to them about. Does it make sense or is it too complicated? Yeah? Good. Yeah, I'll sign it here if somebody wants it on their wall. Okay, good. So to use a metaphor that I actually came up with in a cab in Gothenburg in Sweden 6 years ago or something like that. So how we view this is that when you decide on the employer value proposition, you choose these are the colors that we use when we paint paintings at this company. Then the painting might look completely different in different countries or to different target groups, but it will all be painted with the same colors. Make sense? Good. Then, when it comes to the activation piece, and yeah, James will talk a lot more about this, extremely important then to constantly be human in your communication. Use real people. I will show you some examples soon how bad most of you are when it comes to communicating. And also be purposeful. Remember that you need to link it to the purpose. Why are you in business? How does my job connect to the overall purpose of the organization? So, what do you think is the biggest challenge for companies when it comes to their employer branding strategy? Keep promises. That's a really good one, because honestly, if you ask me, what is it all about? Like employer branding, why are we talking about this? Why are we spending money on this? Why do we have 242 employees? Well, it's because you want to hire, the right people for the right reasons. So they have the right expectations when they join you. That's when you're successful. Then honestly, you don't have to look that much on rankings and stuff like that. If you have people who come into your organization, great culture fit, have the right expectations, they will stay, they will do a good job, and they will be a great fit for your organization. So really good one. Any other challenges?
A good motivation system, for example.
Motivation system, yes.
Management commitment.
Management commitment, also a super important one. Actually, it will be one of the key learnings I will share later. So one might have thought that we have talked earlier here. Also, another very, very big challenge is this. It's differentiation. So when we ask HR professionals around the world, we do an annual survey. You can see that 54% of them say that, yeah, differentiation is our top challenge. And I will now share with you a little example when it comes to differentiation. So here you can see it's a video from the career page at Goldman Sachs. And here you can see that Goldman Sachs are talking about a world of opportunity. And that makes me, as a talent, of course, I want to join a company with a world of opportunities, right? That sounds very appealing. Opportunity there, an opportunity there. Wow, it's going to be so great. Then I start looking around a bit. And what happens? I go to UBS website. And they also have a world of opportunities at UBS. So then I get a bit confused. I'm like, oh, should I join Goldman Sachs? Should I join UBS? I don't know. A couple of more gray hairs. Okay, what happens then? I go to Bank of America. And there, they have a world of opportunity, not opportunities. So it's a bit differentiated from the others here. Okay, I sit and I continue. Okay, which one of these three should I join? I go to Citigroup's website, and I see that they also have a world of opportunities at Citi. So I'm starting to be really, really confused here. So I continue my browsing on the great World Wide Web. And I come to HSBC's website. And I can see that there's a world of opportunity at HSBC as well. And then I'm like, okay, I don't want to work for a bank. I want to go to some other industry. So I'll check out Henkel. No, world of opportunities there as well. And I continue. Deloitte, world of opportunities. And there are actually more examples when it comes to world of opportunities as well. So this is no critique to these companies, but it's just, you know, an observation, right? What can happen if you're too focused on just looking, you know, internally. And I would also question, are they using the same agency to come up with their with their campaigns? In that case, I would love to join that agency. Get a lot of money, you just sit on a chair and you just, you know, send the same tagline to all of these companies. The best job in the world. But then it's not, and you can also, if you want, Google innovation is in our DNA. There are also many, many companies that are using that one as well. Okay, but then of course it's not only about the message, it's also how you present it. So here you can see Morgan Stanley, yeah, different ethnical backgrounds, people are smiling, right? Great. And here you have UBS once again, yeah, kind of same mix here, right? Here you have Credit Suisse. I have a crazy green-blue filter on top here, really wild, right? And yeah, a bit of older people in the picture as well. So that's, I think it sets them apart a bit. And then you have Société Générale. You have more or less the UBS filter on here. And I think if we were to remove these logos, I think it would be very hard for an employee at one of these banks to say, yeah, these are my colleagues. That's my company, right? So it's very, very important to also think about, you know, how you present yourself. And you need to actually stick out. You need to be different. Because otherwise, you know, you will just be one of 20 companies. You will not be one of those top companies that they choose. You are not clear. You're not distinctive. Then another example. Sorry, this is so much fun. I can't stop with these examples. So this is from Mexico. And this one is hilarious, actually. So this is from P&G in Mexico. And when I see this in my social media feed, I'm like, I so want to work at P&G. I want to work with that good-looking guy. Probably nice perfume, tells a really fun joke about the coffee machine in the morning, you know, got for a beer with him, you know, I want to be best friends with this guy. Really want to hang out with him. And the other looks, you know, the colleagues looks very, very nice. So I'm going to send my resume to P&G. Or to J&J. And also look at the people in the background. I actually didn't see it when I found this and started looking at this. I didn't notice this, but it was actually a lady from some school in the US who pointed that out. So you can also see the people in the background. The gentleman here with the pink tie, he's also there. The girl with the hair here, she's there, etc. So then I'm like super confused, like, okay, yeah, should I go to J&J or P&G or to GE? And here's actually, you can see it's actually exactly the same picture. So this can also happen, and it is happening, okay? So also think about that. Use your own people. Don't use these, you know, models, okay? So, yeah, think about, you know, how you present yourself. You need to stand out. You need to do something different. And it's exactly, I would say, when it comes to employer branding, as with, you know, consumer branding. It's no way different. I only think that the only mistake that, you know, we do in employer branding is that when we do benchmarking, I would say most companies, when they do benchmarking, they're looking at their competitors and they're saying like, oh, they do that and that and that. I will also do that. So I do the same at least. I can tell my boss that, yes, we're doing exactly the same as they're doing. They're not doing better or worse than we are. That's how it works. So think, if you really want to get an advantage and really, you know, become an employer of choice, then you have to think about, okay, the others are doing this. What can we do to do something completely different? I think one good example that I normally bring up is L'Oreal, who I think they have a challenge attracting men, especially male engineers. I think that they've done a really good job in terms of, you know, presenting themselves towards that target group. So think about like that, how you position yourself and dare to be different. That's super, super important. So I'm going to show you two examples. This one is actually pretty old. I don't know, maybe it's 4 or 5 years old, but I still think it's a really brilliant example. So let's see here if the technology works. And let's also see if PowerPoint crashes after the video like it did the last time. But that's an element of surprise there. So let's see. No. Come on. Just 2 more seconds or something like that. But basically, I think this is a brilliant
Intel. Sponsors of tomorrow.
Brilliant example of standing out, being a bit fun, and this is how cool the co-inventor of the USB port is at Intel. Another brilliant example is GE. I mean, I was a bit mean to GE earlier with showing that that Mexican guy. So I'm going to be a bit kind to GE as well and show what I think is one of the best employer branding campaigns in a very long time. Has anyone seen this before? No? So it's a series. I just give you some background so you can look it up on YouTube. So it's called What's the Matter with Owen? And this is Owen. And it's basically him telling his friends and his parents, etc., about him starting to work at GE. And they play around with the fact that GE is seen as this old, boring, industrial company. It's I think there are 4 or 5 different videos. So this is just one of them. When he then tells his parents that he has joined GE. Let's keep our fingers crossed for the internet connection here. Everybody have to stop sending email. Oh, no.
GE. Manufacturer. Well, that's why I dug this out for you. It's your grandpappy's hammer, and he would have wanted you to have it.
It meant a lot to him. Yes, GE makes powerful machines, but I'll be writing the code that will allow those machines to share information with each other. I'll be changing the way they work.
You can't pick it up, can you? Go ahead. You can't lift the hammer.
It's okay, though. You're going to change the world.
Just pick it down.
It's good, huh?
I don't need it.
Pick it down.
And there's another one that's almost, I was actually planning to have 2 videos, maybe I should have had that, but there's another one where he tells his friends that has joined GE, and then one of his friends, he just got to work at this really cool app company with these cats. So he just shows the cats, and he's like, yeah, but we do this, and everybody's like, oh, you can put a hat on the cat? Oh, that's so cool. So it's hilarious, so check it out. So in terms of, the messaging and how you should be thinking about that, it's, go from talking about what you do or how you do it to why you do it. Because that's what the talents want to hear. And when we look at the most successful companies in the world, and we see that what they are talking about and what drives their attractiveness, we can see that they're really good at this. And now you might ask yourself, what is this? You have no idea, right? So it's basically that organizations that can provide learning to an equal or to a larger extent than the changes in the surroundings are attractive. So to learn, to develop, it's very linked to the curiosity that I was talking about in the introduction of my presentation here today. So think about that. Learning, development, me as a person, how can I develop? Then we of course have purpose is bigger than products. The purpose piece is something that we are hearing. I mean, there's very seldom that we now have a meeting with a company without them actually bringing up the purpose. And it's super important to, you know, really segment that in the organization and understand why are we in business. I very often ask companies that. What's the purpose of your business? Why do you exist? And it's surprising to see how many companies who can't answer that question actually. So that's super important. One company I think who has a very clear purpose. Just a funny example is Nintendo. You know Nintendo, right? The video games. Do you know when? Does anybody know when Nintendo was founded? Does anybody want to guess? I heard 1980s.
Yeah.
90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. No, Nintendo was founded 1889. Yes, 1889. And do you know what their product was back in 1889? Playing cards, actually. So Nintendo, I think that they've had a very, clear purpose from 1889 about, bringing joy to people's life and to families. It's just, a fun example, but I was shocked when I read that. So I was like, whoa, this is something I have to share. Then also this, innovation equals success. And I think a lot of companies are talking about innovation. I think Tesla even have innovation in the third sentence, if I remember correctly, on their career website. I do, however, want to bring up, since we're sitting and discussing strategy and which attributes to focus on and so forth with so many companies, that it can also be a bit dangerous to use innovation because everybody are talking about it. So it's a very crowded area. So just to throw in innovation, like from the left a bit, like, oh, we're people focused and we care and we're a bit innovative. That will not get you far. So you really need to identify what makes us truly innovative, and how can we articulate that in a way that makes sense for our organization. Because I think that the I word is getting a bit old, to be completely honest. And then, talking about the purpose. I like thinking about purpose as, there are two different types of purpose. So we have purpose with a capital P. And that's the overall purpose of the organization. Why are we in business? Why do we exist? Then we have the lowercase purpose. And that's something that we see are becoming more and more important to the talents. And that's basically, what's my purpose? Because the younger generation, they're very me-focused, right? So they want to know, what's my purpose here? And how does my purpose fit into the overall purpose? So I don't want to complicate things with the purposes, but you have to keep in mind when you talk to talents that they will have that question. Why are you in business? And what's the purpose? What's the purpose of my role? How does that contribute to the overall purpose? So think about that. And this year we've then also incorporated actually then purpose into our research globally. So that's also been very interesting to see how that has played out. And one interesting finding is that it differs a lot between different markets. But in the US, for example, and the US is normally a market where we've seen that, both the work-life balance trend that we're now seeing globally started. Also the CSR trend also started in the US. But we can see with purpose in the US that overall, among talents in the US, inspiring purpose is the number one of all of these 40 attributes, the most important one to the US talents. That's not the case in all markets around the globe, especially not in Russia, where it's the money again. That is really interesting to see. Wow, I'm doing so good on time here. I thought it was, this is what, yeah, I was going to be able to be a bit more stressed here, but James, you will definitely be able to spend all the time you want. So I'm going to end with 9 key learnings, okay? I've received a lot of criticism about KJ, you can't have 9 key learning. Nobody will ever remember 9. You should have like 3, 5, 7 tops, but I'm going to be a bit, disruptive and break the rules, so I will have 9 key learnings. You will, of course, recognize all of these key learnings because they're key learnings from the presentation that you've just hopefully listened to and enjoyed. But just wanted to summarize everything, okay? So how to be successful then in your employer branding strategy? Yeah, 1, define your purpose. We just talked about it. Remember, purpose with a capital P, purpose with a lowercase p. 2, have a clear employer value proposition. Please note that I have not written just have an employer value proposition. I've written have a clear employer value proposition, okay? Thinking about, owning one word. This is the word. That is then attractive, credible, true, distinct, and sustainable. And I'll also say that these 5 words are, if there's 1 or 2 things that I want you to remember from this presentation, it's probably these 5 words. Because for me, that's the foundation for everything for the employer branding strategy. 3, do not only base your strategy on internal findings. What will happen if you do that? You will be talking about a world of opportunities. You will be talking about things that are not attractive to your target group, and you will waste a lot of money talking about irrelevant things to the target group. Make sense? Good? Is it helpful? Yes. Good. 4, have management involvement. What you said earlier. So important. If you don't have management involved when you're going to engage on your employer branding journey, then most likely it will fail somehow. So it's really important to involve them and also convince them. How do you convince them? You need to talk about ROI. You need to link your employer branding spend to the benefits of having, to retention levels, having to screen fewer number of applications and so forth. So the most common objection that we get at Universum when we try to sell, and we call a company like, hi, we're from Universum, we work with employer branding. Yeah, do you want to have a meeting with us? Basically, hopefully the person who's calling is a bit better than that, but yeah. And then what they say is that, well, no, we received 30,000 applications for 50 positions last year, so trust me, we don't have, we don't need to work on an employer brand, maybe for some companies, but we're so, everybody want to work here. But then the question is, of course, okay, are you getting the applications from the right people? Well, we don't know. Have you even had time to go through all of these 30,000? Or it must have taken a lot of time. Maybe you have 3 full-time resources just sitting going through these CVs. Or do you just do like this? You just take all the CVs and then you just take half of them, throw them in a trash bin, and then you just like, Is that how you do it? And then, of course, have they applied for the right reasons? Back to what we were talking about as well. Did somebody recognize how they're processing their CVs? No? Yeah. Exactly. If you're this lucky, then you'll do well here. So it's super important to not use number of applications as a measurement. I normally say that a strong employer brand and a successful employer value proposition strategy can actually lead to a decrease in the number of applications. You might go from 30,000 to 10,000 or 5,000 people, but the right people that are applying for the right reasons. Localize and adapt. One size does not fit all. You remember the slide? US, UK, Russia. One strategy would not work for those markets. So you need to localize and adapt. Otherwise, you will fail. Okay? 6. Dare to be different and clear in your messaging. So we were talking about that, right? The competition is more fierce than ever. They are considering a lot of different employers. A lot of employers are very, very generic. They're talking about everything at the same time. And you need to be clear. Think about that one word again that you wanna own. 7. Always be data-driven, human, and purposeful in your communication. So when you activate your employer brand, you need to have a data-led approach. You need to understand, okay, for this target group, this is how we should tweak it. For this target group, this is how we should tweak it, etc., etc. Don't sit like this. Yeah, I think for engineering, let's talk about this. Our CEO said this is what we should be talking about. No, no. Here's data. And I've been in that situation many times. I remember the first big employee value proposition that I developed was for, I think I can reveal the company now, it's such a long time ago anyway, for Novartis in China. I was super nervous. It was the first time I went to China. I think I went there 2 or 3 times for this project. It took 6 months because it included a communication component. And then I was standing there in the workshop with like 30 people. The CEO of Novartis in China was there as well. And then I presented the draft EVP. And then he sat like this. No, stop, stop, stop. Like only what the CEO can do. Like he just like, you know, in the middle, he just like, oh, everybody is like, oh, okay. And he's like, no, but you know, we've always talked about blah, 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 and I think that, you know, that's what you should be talking about. Then I said to him, I don't know, I mean, yeah, I was probably so young that I dared to do that because I didn't know what the consequences potentially could be. But I was like, but no, but you're actually wrong. I told him, and look here, but I did the right thing. I said, look here, you know, we have data from 60,000 Chinese students here. We've done like 24 focus groups here. We've talked to managers, you know, in all the different business units, etc. And what you're saying here, actually, you know, it will not be helpful for you. It's not attractive. It's not differentiating. And then he was quiet, and then he said, like, okay, I like you. Continue. So that's, I mean, you need, if you have data, then you can have a conversation like that. Okay. And then human, yeah, we saw that good-looking Mexican guy. Use your own people instead, otherwise it will backfire. And then purposeful. Yeah, they want to hear about the purpose. Okay. Number 8, leverage and master social media. I haven't spoken that much about social media in my presentation. James will do that in approximately 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. But this is also super important. And I'll actually get back to this when we look at, I have a couple of slides on some data from Georgia as well that we will look at. That, I mean, you cannot choose, like, oh, should we be on social media or not? No, I mean, that's the new normal. You have to be on social media. You have to promote your employer brand on social media. Talents want you to promote your brand on social media. So it's not a choice for you to say like, no, we're not going to do it, because you have to. And yeah, James will share some really interesting stats on that in his presentation. I do want to say one thing with social media though, that social media doesn't like completely replace all the other channels. People still, to a large extent, read, you know, magazines. People still go to career fairs. People still show up for campus presentations, etc., etc. So I'm not saying drop everything else, just do social media. Absolutely not. But social media, no matter if you like it or not, is and definitely will be one of the, or maybe the most important channel for you, for your employer brand in the future. 9, track the success of the development. What gets measured gets done. This is also, of course, super important to then also set KPIs and actually track how successful you are with your employer brand. Number of applications, not a good measurement. Number of likes on Facebook, not a good measurement. Ranking, yeah, it says something. It's you know, it's on, you know, the tip of the iceberg. It shows the attractiveness, but the true measurement is to see how you are able to change the perception of you as an employer. So pre the EVP development, you're associated with bank, gray, and money. That's what you're associated with. 3 years later, we want to change those associations to growing, flexible, inclusive, for example, if that's the EVP. So that's how you measure. And of course, retention. Are we actually getting, you know, the right people here? Are they staying with us? Do they have the right expectations? So those were the 9 key learnings, and that was also the end of this presentation. Was it helpful? Yeah. Good. On a scale from 1 to 10? 11? Is it an 11 on a scale from 1 to 10? 9. Oh, 9. Oh, I should have 11 key learnings. Oh, good point. Okay. But from ranges from 9 to 11. Good. So, James, the pressure is on. So, boom.